Welcome back and welcome episode 7. I actually had recorded another episode, but the lighting was really bad, so re-recorded, and this one is actually more timely. So I don't know if any of you have seen the news or if you've seen this bill that got passed. I know California's in the news a lot, but this is the one that Elon Musk said that he's leaving California because of this, if this actually goes through. Here's a clip of Michael Schellenberger talking about this law and what it will do.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Schellenberger for Public. I'm afraid I have some terrible news. The governor of America's largest and richest state has just signed a law that puts 10 million children and adolescents in grave danger of medical mistreatment. The media headlines are all wrong. They claim that California Governor Gavin Newsom's new law protects children by stopping public schools from outing their gender to their parents. In fact, it does just the opposite of that. This new law makes children vulnerable to irreversible and lifelong medical abuse and mistreatment. And it's all based on a pseudoscientific idea that some children are born into the wrong bodies and that we can change a person's sex through drugs and surgery. Now, for any of this to make sense, you have to understand what's happening right now in Britain. Several years ago, the government there appointed a well-respected pediatrician named Hilary Cass to investigate whether it was ethical to block the puberty of children, give them opposite-sex hormones, and perform surgeries on their bodies in an effort to make them feel better about their gender. Dr. Cass came back a few weeks ago and said no, absolutely not. Around the same time, the British government banned puberty blockers nationwide. And just a few days ago, the new Labour Party government affirmed that it would maintain the former Conservative government's ban on puberty blockers. In her report, Cass said that so-called social transition, where a child adopts the identity of the opposite sex, is not a neutral act and has psychological consequences. In fact, it's the first step towards medical intervention. What Gavin Newsom has done is actively prevented schools from informing parents that their children have been put on a medical pathway. This is an outrageous attack on both the rights of the children and the parents. Children have a right to go through puberty. No adult should be able to block their puberty. And parents have a right to know if their children thinks that they are the opposite sex or were born into the wrong body. We have seen with leaked internal documents from the leading gender medicine group, WPATH, that these medical interventions, namely puberty blockers, hormones, and surgeries, are not only irreversible but result in sterilization and loss of sexual function. Children and adolescents are simply not mature enough to understand the effects of so-called gender-affirming care. They cannot, in other words, give their informed consent. The new law that Gavin Newsom just signed creates the grave risk that activist teachers, students, and outside groups will convince children that they were born into the wrong body and then hide their social transition from parents, which will lead to these harmful medical mistreatments. As such, the law that was passed is the opposite of what both children and their parents need. We need schools to immediately warn parents if their children think they are the opposite sex. After all, this is a diagnosable psychiatric condition known as gender dysphoria. And if your child has a psychiatric disorder, whether it's anxiety, depression, an eating disorder, or gender dysphoria, you as a parent have a right to know. And schools must stop teaching children or allowing other people to teach children this pseudoscientific and dehumanizing ideas that it's possible to be born in the wrong body and that it's possible to change one's sex. It's not. As such, either the legislature, the courts, or a ballot initiative in California is required to nullify this law. Until then, it's important to spread the word to parents that California public schools are fundamentally unsafe for the millions of children who currently attend them.
And there's no age minimum. They can go to school and they can change their names, they can change their clothes, they can have their records updated, and the schools would not be allowed to inform the parents. It's basically having California and the school system take the place of the parent to decide what is best for their kid. And that is the first step at severing that relationship. Can you imagine a 5-year-old, a kindergartner, going to school and telling their teacher, hi, my name is not Susie, it's actually Bob? And they don't inform the parent, and what they actually do is they say, okay, Susie, you are now Bob. Classmates, Susie's name is Bob. We're gonna call her Bob from now on, okay? I want you to remember that her name is Bob. You can't tell your parents, you can't tell anybody. We're just gonna keep this here. The folks that wrote this, what makes you think that school administrators are any more loving, caring, supportive, informed, qualified to make a decision for a child absent the consent of their parent that could potentially alter them for the rest of their lives? We all know as adults, it is inappropriate to have a secret with the child apart from their parent. That is predatory behavior. That is actually what predators do. That is one of the first ways that they actually groom a child, is to test them to see, can they get them to keep a secret? And if they are successful in doing that, then they are likely to actually go on to abuse them. Do parents not have any more rights? I'm confused. I thought that here in this country, parents have the right to raise their children as they please. This is not taking into account their right to freedom of religion and to raise their children appropriately. I'm going to put up here some of the text from the law. I'm going to leave it on here for a while so that you can actually read it. I highlighted the parts that are the most important, that jump out to me. Specifically here, choosing, letter B, section 2, letter B, choosing when to come out by disclosing an LGBTQ plus identity and to whom are deeply personal decisions impacting health and safety as well as critical relationships. You would think a parent and child relationship is a critical relationship that every LGBTQ person has the right to make for themselves. And then we jump down to section D. Parents and families have an important role to play in the lives of young people. Skip, but it can be harmful to force young people to share their full identities before they are ready. So it's not harmful for them to share these identities in a school setting with people who are not their family and are not invested in their long-term interest in every bit of their being. But it is harmful for their parents to know? Okay. And then going down to letter F, policies that require outing pupils without their consent violate pupils' rights to privacy and self-determination. Why is this only applicable for gender identity? So children cannot pick out their own doctor. They can't pick up their own prescription. They can't get a tattoo. They cannot drive. They cannot live alone. They cannot sign a lease. They cannot buy a house. I mean, we can go on. They cannot even enroll themselves in a school. Yet this law is written saying that without their consent, it violates their rights to privacy and self-determination. What type of autonomy are they thinking that these children are entitled to? Why have there not been any type of protest or bills written to lower the age of drinking? Why is it 21? Why can't we make it 7? Because of their right to self-determination. This is not being treated like any other matter. A 5-year-old wouldn't even be able to walk into a hair salon by themselves and tell a hairdresser, hey, I want you to dye my hair fire engine red. What hairdresser would be like, okay, sure, hop in the seat? We all know that children, they are under the protection of their parents until 18. Those laws were created for a purpose, and this bill in California obliterates that. It is completely insane. K1. Teachers and school staff can provide crucial support to LGBTQ plus young people and can play an important role in encouraging them to seek out appropriate resources and support. So you're telling me that the teachers and school staff are going to play a more crucial role in any student's lives than their parents, than the people that brought them into this world? I don't know if anybody's heard of attachment theory, but it was one of the most revolutionizing theories to come forth about human relationships. but it is actually the parent-child relationship, which is the most important relationship that we will ever have in our lives. Oftentimes, what attachment theory has shown is that the partners that we pick to have in our lives is going to largely be based on the attachment and the relationship that we had with our primary caregivers, our parents, our mothers, our fathers, our grandmother if we were not raised by a mother and father. And this bill is basically saying, well, we don't care about that. That's not the most important one. And that relationship, we're not going to allow it to play that role. And us as a school, we are actually going to be the ones to determine what is best for your child. We are going to be the ones that are going to support your child, and we're going to be the ones to tell them that what they are doing is right. We're going to be the ones to tell them, no, this is not just a passing phase. Actually, if you are feeling like this, then you probably were born in the wrong body. And we're here to affirm that, and we're here to tell you, yes, you should feel uncomfortable. And so this Assembly bill in California is now facing a legal challenge because a federal lawsuit has been filed by the Chino Valley Unified School District. And I am so grateful for them. So I'm going to be praying every day for this challenge, that truth prevail, to show that this is a dangerous bill that is only going to cause more harm, that this entire narrative that if you don't transition a kid, they're more likely to commit suicide is completely false. That a report just came out from the UK stating that there has been no increase in suicides in youth since the banning of medically transitioning children. And the lies that they were telling parents was like, would you rather have a dead daughter or an alive son? Those are not the only two choices. They really are not. Those are the narratives and the choices that are being presented because we have multiple institutions that are wanting to push forward this gender ideology. And I know somebody might say, oh, well, some kids, they have abusive parents, or, oh, some kids, if they came out to their parents will kick them out. You know what? Most parents are not like that. That's not the majority. Most people, how about this? Most people are just decent. You may want to think that everybody out there is a monster. It's not true. They exist. Yes, absolutely. Monsters exist, but they're not the majority. Most people actually are decent. Anytime I ever hear somebody that they're so scared about this and that and this happening, I always think back to grad school and when Airbnb first went. This is a tangent, but I'm telling you it's relevant. When Airbnb first went to pitch their idea to get an investment, the investors were like, no way, we're not doing this. We're not investing in your company. You're going to let rapists and murderers into your homes. Are you kidding me? This is crazy. This is too risky. Well, Airbnb went on, they got their funding, and they looked at their transactions, and like, I think any one night, this number may have increased since then. I haven't looked, but I remember at the time, it was like any one night, it was like, there's like over hundreds of thousands of transactions that are happening across the world. So let's just say 100,000 to keep it simple. They were saying it was like less than 1% was there anything negative. And when we say negative, it was like property damage, theft, let alone any type of violent crimes. And that's with people letting strangers come and stay in their homes, because we all know Airbnb, sometimes you're staying in somebody's home. And so I bring that up and circle it back that this bill, it purports that most parents are abusive, unsupportive, would refuse their child, would disown them, and that's just not true. Most parents are not like that. We need to have hope in humanity, and we need to give people the opportunity to make the right decision, not assume they are all going to make the wrong decision. And so, again, join me, please. Speak up or submit. I want to hear your comments. Parents, if you're out there, are you okay with your kid transitioning, your 5-year-old, your 6-year-old, your 7-year-old transitioning, and the school not telling you? Or do you think that you have a right? That's all. Thank you. Bye.